Hello everyone, this is Michael Charles Garrett coming to you in a little different fashion right now. A little later on this evening God willing, we're going to make a video as we normally do. But this is an attempt at doing something a little different. For a while I have played with the idea of doing some type of commentary that, as you know, those of you who have watched the normal messages, we are very biblically oriented. You know, my Bible's right in front of me. Well, it's right in front of me now. But I'd like to be able to do some things that are a little different than the typical church idea and just have the freedom to explore different ideas. Now, Guy and I have talked about this concept. I was sort of thinking in terms of Michael C. Speaks. You know, Michael being my first name, C standing for Charles. Michael C. Speaks. Guy's idea was to call it MCG Commentary. And for that reason, I found my old MCG hat to maybe sort of go along with that theme. Here, this will be the first initial commentary. We won't always be biblical, but the things I say, I hope, are biblically sound. And I thought I would spend just a little bit of time. These will not be that long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And like I say, later on, we're going to make a sermon, or the normal message. But a lot of you don't know my background, and I thought it might be good if I shared a little background with you. I was born in 1950. I grew up in two small towns in Indiana. One was called Patoka, Indiana. The other is called Rockport. Now, Patoka is a very small little village. Rockport, probably about 2,500. That's where I went to high school. That's where I played football. And when I was about 16, I was in a depressed period of my life. Maybe, I guess you could call it teenage angst. You hear a lot of people use that phrase. I'm not sure what it means. But I did pray a very solemn prayer to God Almighty and Jesus Christ that they help me through that. And the following evening, while I was heading down towards Evansville, Indiana to attend a karate class, I thought I heard Paul Harvey, the famous newscaster. And I never knew that he did programs at night. Well, as it turned out, it was not Paul Harvey. It's a man that I call Mr. Ted. Mr. Ted became a highly influential person in my life. And a few years later, when I was 19, I went out to Pasadena, California, where Mr. Ted had a high-ranking position in that college, which was also associated with a church. And that's where I spent 4 years of my life, in Pasadena, California. Well, following those 4 years, I ended up getting a job, a teaching job in Arizona that was in and around and near an Indian reservation. And I spent 25 years in Arizona. I did a lot of things out there. I did a lot of outdoorsy things. I hiked down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back up at 4 different times. Once in the spring, once in the fall, once in the summer, once in the winter. And by far, spring and fall were more pleasant. I did some sort of like rafting on parts of the Colorado River. I did a lot of snow skiing. At that time, I was much younger, much more agile, much more nimble, and it didn't hurt so much to fall. And I spent, as I say, 25 years in Arizona. And then I came back to this part of the country. The main reason I came back was my mother was her health was starting to decline. And my father quite nobly had determined that he was going to take care of her, that he was not going to send his sweetheart, his wife, the mother of his children. He wasn't going to send her to a nursing home. And I highly respect my dad for doing that. Well, when Mom finally passed away from all of these ailments that kept getting worse and worse, it wasn't too long before Dad started declining. And I had determined that as my father was loyal to his wife to the very end, that I would be very loyal to my father and take care of him at home. Now, it wasn't an easy period of life for me. Like when Mom was alive, Dad was sort of the chief caretaker and I was his helper. And I mainly had the job of helping to move her from point A to point B. But after Mom passed away, I had no one to help me. I do have an older brother and an older sister, but I'm sad to say they did not go out of their way to help me. But with the help of Jesus Christ, I got through that, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I gave my dad, my human father, the respect and the dignity which he deserved. Well, eventually, Dad passed away. He lived to be 93 and a half, and coincidentally, as I've mentioned before, my father and Don's father were just about the same age, within, what, a week or two, Don?
Yeah, I think 7 days or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they both died within just a few days of each other. And when I moved back here to Kentucky, I was associated with a church organization which Mr. Ted started. He was the president, he was the founder. And I began working with that church organization as a minister. I did an awful lot of traveling, traveled far and wide. I also did a lot of singing at those church services. And like I say, we went as far west as Texas. We went as far east as over like South Carolina, down to Florida, up to Michigan. We just traveled a lot of areas. Not all of those trips, but many of those trips, Don rode along to keep me awake, but every time I looked at him, Don was asleep. So maybe I should have gotten somebody who talked more. Don's sort of the strong, silent type. He's not real talkative. But anyway, after Mr. Ted died, my speaking responsibilities increased greatly. And Mr. Ted's son took over in being in charge of that organization. I wish I could be more kind. Now, I truly loved, admired, and appreciated Mr. Ted. I also deeply loved and admired and appreciated his wife, who was named Shirley. Mr. Ted often called her Cheryl for whatever reason. But Mr. Ted finally passed away, and my responsibilities increased. However, Ted and Shirley's oldest son is not one of my favorite people. He's not very biblically oriented. His only real claim to fame is he's a far right-wing zealot. And all he really wants to talk about is politics. And he has a lot of harsh opinions about a lot of people. Well, eventually, I gave a sermon down in Tyler, Texas, entitled, now what was that entitled, Don? Look to Jesus, not Moses. Well, that organization was very old covenant in its direction, and quite frankly was not very accommodating to the idea of Jesus Christ. I think the old covenant had a time and a place, but with the life and the death of Jesus Christ, the old covenant was over. And now we live under a new set of guidelines, and that's called the new covenant. And for a few of us who have been given the gift of understanding the new covenant and understand the preciousness of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, we think differently than old covenant people. And it just really came to be that sooner or later I was going to have to leave that group. And I realized that for many weeks or months, but I always thought I'm not going to leave this organization because of my sense of loyalty to Mr. Ted, who had started that organization. But like I say, I gave that message, look to Jesus, not Moses, and all that sort of set them on fire down there in Tyler, Texas. And it wasn't long where the son of Mr. Ted and Shirley, decided that I was not to be trusted, that I had newfangled ideas. I did, Don. I did have newfangled ideas. They were called the New Covenant, which is the only source of salvation which is given to all of us, Jesus Christ being the chief cornerstone. And so after that moment, we had some people who used to meet with us, and they decided they were going to chum up with Mark down in Tyler. And so our local little church group, which was a very nice church group for a long time, it split in two, and those folks stayed allied with Mark. And we sort of became independent back here. And that's where I came up with the name, the Owensboro Church of Jesus Christ. And I think that was an inspired name. I've always appreciated that. That's to whom we look, Jesus Christ. He is the chief cornerstone. He is the head apostle. He is our salvation. He is our leader. And I don't want to be associated with old covenant principles. So ever since then, we had church services on our own until one by one our church members, they basically became older, and many of them developed diseases or problems, and one by one they died or they moved away. And now the only two original people who live in the Owensboro area are Don and myself. And I do commend Don for his loyalty and his help for all these years. Don is never going to be a spokesman. Would you agree with that, Don?
Yeah.
I can't even get Don to give a closing prayer or an opening prayer. But he's very helpful in helping to set up the equipment, the cameras, the lights, and we now, instead of having local people attend our organization, we now rely upon these videos that can be seen on YouTube, Owensboro Church of Jesus Christ, and that's how we get our message out now. So I'm thankful for modern technology, and we keep doing our thing. In my personal life, as I said, I have great respect for Mr. Ted. Just unyielding, personal admiration, respect. Now, was Mr. Ted perfect? No. But, folks, neither am I. And most likely neither is Don. Would you agree, Don?
True.
And most likely all of you have your own perfections. So as I've tried to point out before, there's a verse in the 3rd chapter of Revelation where Jesus is speaking to the different churches of the 1st century. And he says, "To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, as I have overcome, and am set down with my Father in his throne." So the idea, we need to always keep improving. You're never going to be perfect as a human being, but at least you can try to keep improving day by day, week by week, month by month. And much of what I do in honor of Mr. Ted and Shirley. Both of those are very important people to me. And I will say, if you've heard the other church messages, I'm also deeply appreciative of a young man who saved my life on 2 different occasions. I just refer to him as his first name, and that being Luke. And Luke is a college student now. To the best of my knowledge, he's doing very well. In a few days, or in early April, the 2nd week of April, Luke is going to have a spring vacation, a spring break. And I hope that Luke and I have a chance to spend time together to sort of become reacquainted. Luke is very important to me. He's my friend. He's my brother. He's my lifesaver. And I don't know if you can do much better than that. So that sort of brings you up to date with me here and now. I'll just say very quickly, sports officiating has been a big part of my life. I started umpiring baseball when I was 15 years of age, and I still umpire baseball and softball, and I still referee volleyball. There was a time when I was a little younger and could move a little better that I was a basketball referee. But I've had a few problems over the last few years, and I don't do that anymore. I wish that I could get better. I actually wish I could get back on a basketball court. That may or may not happen. I go to the gym. I work out. My biggest weaknesses are the muscles of my legs, my hips, and my lower back. They all seem to work as a unit. And I have some problems there. But I will say this, I'm stronger now than I used to be. I had a very unfortunate situation happen back on July 11th in the year 2020. As I was making a video, I realized that I was in the process of having a stroke. And we went out to the hospital at the end of that video, and the people that I saw who were supposed to render to me expert medical advice were worthless. Now, the only good part of this story is I basically healed on my own. And most of you, if you met me, you would not know that I had a stroke. And I thank Jesus Christ for that. And the other good part of this story, the jerk who was supposed to be taking care of me, a short time later, word got out of what he had failed to do, and he was released. He was sent packing. And I'm glad he was, so that nobody else in this area has to go through his particular form of malpractice. But unfortunately, he's probably out there somewhere in Ohio or Michigan or Iowa, or who knows what. And I don't have much good to say about that man whose first name was Eric. My only advice to you younger couples, never name a child Eric. That tells you what I think of Eric. So I've gone through some health issues with wounds and such. At the present moment, right now, I'm doing better than I've done in a long, long time. So bit by bit, I'm climbing up that ladder. Many of my medical problems have gone away. I'm very thankful to Jesus Christ for that. And I recently had my annual physical or wellness check, they call it. And my family doctor, I asked her, and I really enjoy her, I said, can you guess how much longer I have to live? And she got on her computer or her phone, typed in a bunch of numbers like blood pressure and heart rate and blood sugar and all those fancy medical terms. And the machine spit out a number that I have at least another decade to live if all goes well. Now, do you know that Chuck Norris, Don, died here in the last day or two?
Yeah.
Do you remember how old he was?
He just turned 86.
Just turned 86. So with the help of Jesus Christ, I hope that I can live a little longer than Chuck Norris. But keep in mind, my father lived to be 93 and a half. So it really becomes an important part to me. There are two reasons I want to continue living. One, I want to see Luke mature in his life. I want to see Luke find a young lady who will become his wife and the mother of his children. I very much want to see that. And the other thing is, I know that Jesus Christ is returning to this earth. I don't know when. As I've said so many times, Jesus could return in 5 years, or 10 years, or 15 years, or 25 years, or 50 years. We don't know because we haven't been told. But it would be fulfilling to me if I could live long enough that I could actually witness with my own eyes the return of Jesus Christ. And so that's my goal. Two things keep me motivated: to live long enough to see Luke's life unfold in a positive way, and to live long enough in order to see the return of Jesus Christ. So I've gone on a little longer than I had planned to, and hopefully we'll make these future commentaries a little more succinct and well bundled. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about who I am, where I came from, and what I represent. For me, it's all about the Bible. To me, it's all about the Bible. I have somewhat jokingly, when people have come to me and said, well, Mike, what is your religion? And I have said to them, I'm a Biblican. Now, when I said that word, I didn't know if it was a legitimate word or not. I still don't know. But I was trying to convey to them, I don't follow churches. I have no interest in what the Catholic Church teaches, or what Protestant churches teach, or what Mormon churches, or Seventh-day Adventist, or just on and on. I'm not interested. I'm interested to know what Jesus Christ says. That's where my focus is. It's always been there. I hope that it always will be. So we'll end this now, and we're going to come back in just a few moments and do the normal weekly message. So until just a little later, goodbye, my friends.